Next up, we'll take a look at block time. So block time is a measurement of how long it takes the network to add a new block to the blockchain. Some examples of different network block times are Bitcoin, typically about every 10 minutes. Ethereum, we see about every 12 to 15 seconds a new block is added. Cardano, this could be as short as 20 seconds. However, with Cardano, at least 15 levels of blocks above it are needed for true reversibility. So a true transaction time is about 5 to 10 minutes. Typically, one of the highlights of blockchain networks are the fact that the transactions are irreversible. So Bitcoin, every 10 minutes a transaction is added, can't be reversed. Ethereum, every 12 to 15 seconds a block is added. Once again, those transactions can't be reversed. Cardano adds them as short as 20 seconds, but allows for irreversibility. Depending on the situation. But once at least 15 levels of blocks are added after that, right? So let's say block 33, there's a transaction added on that. And at least up to block 48, that transaction can be reversed. After that, it can't be reversed. Dogecoin, on the other hand, every minute a new block is added. And Litecoin, every 2.5 minutes, about. So here's a chart. This is the Bitcoin and Ethereum block time historical chart. As we can see, this is actually from 2020, late 2020, going into 2021. Generally, the Bitcoin block time has stayed relatively about 10 minutes, right? We do see a spike here in late June 2021, where the block time reached a high of about 25 minutes per block. This could be in part due to the Chinese mining ban, and we start to see, right? Generally, we see fluctuations, right? There's no straight line here, but there's fluctuations around 10 minutes. From mid-April going to about, let's say, August, this is a period of volatility in terms of Bitcoin's block time. This could be due to the impact that the Chinese mining ban had on Bitcoin mining, where you had the predominant home of Bitcoin mining, China. All these miners and mining companies had to flee. And from there, they had to leave. The country banned Bitcoin mining. Many of them went to the United States. Some of them went to Russia. Some of them went to Kazakhstan. Some Europe. Some Canada. Really, the mining community was dispersed, and no longer China was the central hub. And as a result, we do see fluctuations in the Bitcoin block times, right? There's instability in how the transactions were processed. It only makes sense that we're going to see instability with the transaction time and how long it takes for a block to actually be added to the blockchain. Here are some more statistics. This is some variation between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Dogecoin. We do see generally average time between blocks about 7, maybe about 8 minutes. ETH about 13 seconds. Dogecoin about 1 minute 3 seconds. So this, all these statistics will vary depending on when you're looking at one of these on-chain metric analytic websites, right? Sometimes it'll be 7 minutes, sometimes it'll be 12 minutes, right? But the average, we could say, is about 10 minutes, give or take. We do see general volume statistics and transactions per speed. This is an interesting one, particularly for block time. So we see transactions per second, I should say. We see about 3 transactions per second on Bitcoin are processed. Ethereum, about 14.36. So we could say about 14, maybe 15 transactions per second. Dogecoin, with a noticeably slower transaction speed, with about a third of a transaction is processed every second. So we could say about one transaction every 3 seconds on the Dogecoin network. Next up, we'll take a look at network traffic. So network traffic refers to how much activity and network usage is occurring at a particular time. When more transactions are requested, the network activity is considered high. When less transactions are requested, the network activity is considered low. Now, periods of high or higher network activity can result in delays for the transaction to be processed, and this results in the transaction entering a pending state. You have to wait longer for confirmation. So just to reiterate, here's a basic breakdown of how Bitcoin and really crypto transactions are processed. So let's say we start in the top left. Kelly wants to send Charlie some Bitcoin, right? This person A is sending person B some crypto. The proposed transaction is broadcast to everyone in the network. So I'm sending this to you, and that transaction is broadcast to all the nodes on the network. There's a new transaction coming in. Miners verify these proposed transactions, and they'll bundle them into blocks, right? They use their processing power. They use their computers to answer cryptographic puzzles. Basically, they're using their computers to process transactions, their processing power. The winner, or the person with the highest amount of processing power, will add his or her block to the blockchain, which is filled with bundles of transactions, right? Which now cannot be altered, right? Once that block is added to the blockchain, that's it. It cannot be refuted. It cannot be altered because it was already proposed. It was already verified and then added. That person then collects a reward in Bitcoin. And then everyone in the network, all the nodes and miners operating on the network and running the Bitcoin program, they receive a copy of the updated chain, and the transaction is considered complete. Everyone agrees. Everyone receives the updated copy. The transaction is added. That's it. Now here we see some various statistics in regarding to the Bitcoin mempool, in regards to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the Dogecoin. Here we see just general transactions per second, and we could see just various more statistics. Now with transactions come transaction fees. Transaction fees are paid when any amount of cryptocurrency is sent from one address to another. Fees are used to compensate miners and validators who help maintain the blockchain infrastructure. So all those people that are processing the transactions, they need to be compensated for their time, their energy, right? They're spending all this money on equipment. They're spending money, electrical sources, power, payments for its facility, payments for workers. That all needs to be compensated. The Bitcoin network has grown considerably beyond just being able to run a mining node in your room. Now, fees can change based on network traffic and demand on a blockchain, where high periods of traffic may result in higher fees, and lower periods of traffic may result in lower fees. The size of fees can also depend on the size of a transaction, where larger transactions take up more space in the block and can take longer to validate. Now, users who need their transaction to be processed right away may opt to pay higher fees to have priority in the queue. Here's an example. This is the Ethereum average transaction fee. We currently see in around mid-March that the fee was about $1.50 per transaction. And this is considerably lower than previous highs, especially in May, October, November, and January, where the network was extremely congested and fees were extremely high because of the amount of people trying to access and utilize the blockchain all at once. Here's another figure of the Ethereum average transaction fee historical chart. And here we see specific spikes. Sometimes we want to take a look at different analytics. Here we see as a really large spike on Ethereum transaction fees, reaching a high of about $70 average per transaction some point in April to June 2021. And we see similar highs and peaks in early January 2022, October and November 2021, and also in August. These will all coincide with various NFT cycles, right? Our interest in NFTs. Where interest in NFTs goes up, so does the Ethereum average transaction fee. We also see it correlate generally with Ethereum and also just the greater crypto market capitalization and general growth, right? During these periods where Ethereum saw these tremendous bottoming outs in terms of transaction fees, we saw great declines in the crypto markets, right? From May, June into July and August, just general reversal from the all-time highs produced in mid-2021. And this coincides with that, right? There's less people investing in crypto. That means there's less people interested in it, less people actually using the blockchains. So there's not as much congestion. We see the same thing from January 2022 and onward, where generally we see this declining slope, this declining figure. This does coincide with the declining prices in crypto from 2022 onward. We also want to consider active addresses. So active addresses are a measurement to the amount of active addresses on a blockchain during a specific period of time. This metric can be used to measure how active or how used a blockchain is, and can also track when a blockchain becomes busier. Now, active users can vary depending on what you're looking at or what you want to track. You could track active users over the past year, or over the past 6 months, or over the past 3 months. It really depends on what you have the chart and your analysis set to. Now, we can also use this to track seasonal trends of addresses becoming active, or seasonal trends of addresses moving more coins. Maybe we see just general increased levels of activity in October, November, and December of every year, right? Those are generally, arguably, better months in finance, right? This could have some sort of correlation with crypto as well. So this is something that we may want to track as we dive into on-chain analysis more. Now, within that, if we even want to take an even more in-depth and specific look, we can even look towards specific hours or days or weeks or months of higher blockchain usage. Now, events or price action causing addresses to perform more transactions, this can be something that we see maybe in real life events. Maybe the Ethereum Foundation is promoting something, right? They just had some sort of network update, and that's an event that could cause an increase in transactions. More people are using the blockchain. And within that, we can also look for specific days or weeks or hours, right? Let's say if we know that there is always some sort of increase in usage during the day, and we know that at midnight on the weekends, there's less usage on the blockchain, that might be a better time to mint the NFT, or better time to move money onto a decentralized exchange or swap currencies or move money from your exchange account to your private wallet. These are things that we want to look out for in regards to activity and lower transaction fees. And within that, we'll also see competition and comparisons between blockchain versus blockchain. Cardano versus Ethereum, Solana versus Luna, right? Which one has more active users? And this is something that can be useful when determining the size of a blockchain. Here's an example of the number of active addresses. And active addresses, this can vary. How recent were these addresses active? The past 6 months, the past year, and generally, we see that activity has gone down. We have seen less activity, especially in comparison to 2020 and 2021, and also 2017, 2018, where we saw this peak, this general spike in activity correlating with all-time highs and the peak of the cycle in the 2017, 2018 market cycle. We do see peaks here with the market peak of 65K in April 2021. Now, generally, the market produced an even higher high, around 69K of Bitcoin per Bitcoin. And at the same time, we did not see an increase in number of active addresses. We actually saw the number of active addresses decline. And the trend continues to do so for the time being. So this is something that we're going to have to see if there is a significant shift. Once again, going along with the idea that more people are holding Bitcoin as opposed to spending it and moving it around because they're holding it for the long term.